everybody, it's Pleasantly Twisted, and I never thought there would be a day that I would be able to say, hey, I got a game key from a AAA company, and additionally never thought the first major game I reviewed would be one knee-deep in what I do already, disturbing the peace and stirring the shit, which is more or less what you're walking into with Watch Dogs Legion, or as I've been lovingly calling it, Bahbee's First Resistance. I wanted to make it clear that this is a review copy of the game that was provided to me by Ubisoft for reviewing purposes, so this would be under embargo and have spoilers within it. Tread carefully and tread accordingly. If you like the stuff that I do, make sure you follow me over at Twitch at Pleasantly Twisted, and you can follow me on Twitter as well at the same name for more Let's Plays, indie reviews, and just a generally good time playing try-hard things. Let's go ahead and get into it, and just a content warning for a lot of profanity and violence. So overall, the game is nothing short of gorgeous. From excellent water effects to diverse and distinct clothing, well-placed and designated facial features, the game isn't going to be ugly by any means. I ran this on my most recent rig using a 1070 Ti, a Ryzen 37X, and 64GB of DDR3200MHz RAM at 60 frames per second on mostly high and very high settings. Minimum required settings are a 970 or 1620 Super, a Ryzen 5 1400, and 8GB of RAM to run the game on the lowest preset. Everything just looks nice overall, with the occasional moment from oddities like poor mouth syncing and always the accursed hair textures. Reflections are appealing, and they do an exceptional job at making black people look black, or someone who looks to be of Asian ethnicity actually looks Asian and not like a white model with a few sliders adjusted here and there. Lighting is on point, with things that are dark and dank looking just that, cars looking way more expensive than they absolutely should be, and everything has a certain definable weight and stature to it that just fits. Tech all looks exceptional, with my personal favorite being the spider boy you get right out the gate. It just looks cool, and watching it move looks cool. That could be a defining term for the entirety of the game, really. It's just cool. So cool that I can literally go out and be all Viva la Resistance as a highlighter pink black lady who looks like she's tired of explaining to you that no, you can't withdraw money you don't have, and yes, I will kick you out. You spend your time in London, and while I can't say I've been to London, this definitely makes me feel like I could very feasibly be in London. It's what I would anticipate London looks and feels like, with the occasional clumsy person, that clumsy person being me, running into somebody. Several times I kept trying to walk into the phone booths because they just look accessible, like they look real. Even the ads on billboards and cars look and feel believable. It made me still want to try and turn them off. The loud coloration of many things was arguably my favorite thing to see in the game. Splattered, scattered graffiti everywhere, neon lights illuminating your hideout and perhaps places you may or may not belong in. There are some items I think look a little off-kilter, such as when you first get to character select, some of the characters' blazers are like they struggled to get the cut down just right. So everyone is stuffed into these stiff, bland, or plaid boxes. This is especially noticeable when it comes to things like jackets. Shirts aren't so bad, and pants and shoes generally look correct. But the front of a lot of coats will have you wondering if perhaps they ate too much salt on their last meal and suffer from some type of bloat or indigestion. However, it's not so bad that you'll find yourself saying, okay, I can't look at this model. I can also appreciate their attention to detail on each person without falling into a giant bucket of stereotypes. At one point, I recruited a guy who could easily be a TSA nightmare on appearance alone, but literally had in his profile that he just wants to read about cats. At no point did I bring someone on board whose character traits were 100% tied to racial stereotypes, or who you would expect to fit in an expected mold. The game just out the gate stuns you with how clean everything looks, barring a little bits here and there that was mentioned about confusing bloat and bad mouth syncing. Engagements amongst NPCs also look and feel organic. You can drive or run down the road and see, plus over here, people talking it up and engaging even though one of the people there can be recruited, which we'll get to in a bit. But while we're here, let's talk about why I'm a highlighter pink black lady, looking for both her stylist and her next set of teeth to kick in. Watch Dogs Legion puts you at the foot of a resistance gone south. You start the game having saved the city, or so you thought, from a splinter group that, as you save the Parliament building, succeeds in destroying your headquarters and blowing up 3 separate locations despite your best efforts. And then you die. Literally, the first person you play just dies. This splinter set goes by 0 day, since, day 0 was taken, and you start out as the lone surviving operative of DedSec alongside your leader, Sabine. Thus, you are thrusted into the game with the task of both rebuilding DedSec and, liberating London from a bunch of imperialist assholes. As you roam the game, which by the way, this promotes free roaming and exploration immensely, you'll see denizens of London living out their day-to-day lives, hating government like good adults, coupled with literal Albion police forces arbitrarily patrolling and touting their guns and intimidation. There's going to be points in the game where you'll actually see them harassing people for wearing masks or just being too loud. Overhead drones are constantly running over the city surveying everyone's every move, and with the correct tool on deck you can use those to your advantage or completely elude them outright, which thusly leads us to gameplay. I cannot stress to you how absolutely horrid the driving is. It's some of the worst driving I've dealt with in a game. I tried to swap over to controller and that made it marginally better, but let me assure everyone that the absolute moment I found out about auto driving, I took advantage of it and I refused to try again at any point whatsoever. It is just bad. It's so bad even the game itself hates it. Seriously, just don't bother with the rest. Literally do auto driving. On occasion it may weird out and drive super slow, but take it off for a brief moment, move forward a foot, then turn it back on. It is not worth it to say, look ma, I drove in a game not centered on driving. That aside, the gameplay is exactly what you would expect from a Watch Dogs game. If you've played 2, you know that you'll spend a good amount of your time roaming the city, staring into your phone and actually hacking something 900 meters over, blowing up a transformer, ramming a car, just your typical everyday hacker things. You have access to guns, but the game makes it a loud point to say that if possible, you don't actually want to use them. The name of the game here is hacking all the things, knocking people out without alerting others around you, and then crossing the wires and kicking the smoke bombs as needed. The game does give you a clean rundown of how to use your gun if need be, but again, it's ill-advised. All of that out of the way, gun gameplay feels good overall, it isn't clunky or slow, and it doesn't feel like your character is made of lead, which I've ran into plenty of times. So if you absolutely need to shooty McShoot, you can do so with ease. That said, you have access to a weapon wheel, but I found myself never having to use it often, if ever, since shooting is discouraged. Later in the game, however, the same wheel can house 2 of your gadgets and several of your chosen character's abilities. When I mentioned bumping into people earlier, these people will on chance literally square up with you. You bump the wrong person, and they'll chase your ass around the block for disrespecting them. Lucky for you, they have a melee training just for that. Your main means of growth and progression is not just story, but recruiting others on the street who are sick of Albion's shit. You approach, hear them out, agree to a mission, and go on your merry way. However, you do run the risk of failing the mission. If you fail, they won't be recruited and instead will play cranky with you. This means you'll have to wait until further in the game to get special tools and abilities to unfuck them. However, if you're successful, you'll gain access to playing that operative. Gadgets are useful and fun, from the spider that can infiltrate to electroshock bombs. I recruited a lady who wears a vest that constantly detonates smoke bombs and is a melee specialist. You can also recruit from side quests and game completion, like how I accidentally found a brawler's ring and was met with a tiered challenge of, hey, if you beat their ass hard enough in fisticuffs, you can recruit them. And upon clearing the first round, got to actively choose who I wanted to try and recruit, which is how I found Gassing Fisticuffs Lady. You'll also need to get hip to your tools quickly, because they'll all be useful immediately. Literally plan on hacking anything you can get your grubby hands on, from cameras to jamming the guns to forklifts, cars. If you have your components, you're gonna hack it at least once. The world is open and vast, and quite literally your oyster, so you don't have to be too afraid of straying off the beaten path, because again, this game wants you to stray off that path and find all your new anarchy friendos. You'll also discover in the prologue that the map only stands to get grander from there, expanding into other sections of London and giving you a mountain to work with. The only real downside here is that because of how large the map is, you'll find yourself being frustrated how often you'll go to recruit the cool-looking Pierce grandma, only to find out her mission is clean across town in Cambridge, which now means you have to jack a car, drive all the way over, then play a game of find the spot to see if you're in the correct location. I will say an actual gripe I have is sometimes when trying to hack the cameras, it's not really clear where exactly the camera is that you're hacking. Many times I would jump to a camera that I assumed was in the same room as my current one, only to be sent careening outside of the building into an alley and forced to monitor a cat and 2 cars, when all I wanted to do was download some data that was 6 feet in front of me. But the distances and hack cameras aside, hacking generally speaking feels good, is a blast to do, and I enjoy punching people far more than I did shooting them. It was just far more satisfying dodging a punch than haymakering them into oblivion. Plus, look at all of these operatives. There's so many. There's so many. Going into the final stretch of things, I wanted to take some time to talk about the sound and the music. Everyone who's watching my channel knows that sound and music is literally critical to me, and sadly this is a pretty short segment overall for this game. The music from Watch Dogs Legion is all licensed stuff that you can get or probably have heard on your Spotify playlist. At one point I was driving in the car and the game was playing Chemical Brothers and followed it up with Gorillaz, and depending on your station you might catch some other genres you fancy. Quite literally the songs that played are things that I have in some of my Spotify playlists and whatnot. The biggest bummer here is, like cars in real life, if it isn't your car, which none of them are, you can't leave it on the station you like. So every time you hop into the car, there's a chance you're going to hear that country station you loathe, or you'll be thrown face first into a trance mix that you didn't take nearly enough LSD for. I can't really comment too much on the music because there's a variety and they treated it extensively like a radio station. The sounds for everything else in the game, though, are relatively strong. I mentioned earlier that you can hear the banter between people. Well, you can hear the people and they sound distinctly different, and it's interesting to eavesdrop on for roughly about the first 2 hours. You start to notice after a bit that maybe they wore down their list of VAs and you start being able to pick them out from a distance. Some lines get recycled much heavier than others, and some people you can tell are just kind of stretched thin and made to say the same scripts over and over, maybe even stuck in a loop of saying things. It gets jarring after a bit hearing people being confused on the phone in the middle of the resistance coming up. Again, it's not something that I would say or believe would be enough for people to put the game down, but I'm trying to be fair and pointing out that you will eventually notice it. But you may also be entirely too busy trying to hack another drone or watching Albion goons get shocked by a trap you set up to notice. You may not even notice because you might decide you're just going to go up and deck someone in Albion and then run away. Everything, however, had defined, discernible noise. Everything from the movement of your feet on the pavement versus tile, to the attention to the kind of shoes you're wearing when jogging, the sound of the clitter clatter from the spider drone leg movement, even a subtle of hacking something, only to be met by surprise that some bully was in earshot distance and also heard it. It really plays up sound as an important part of your stealth and engaging the stealth missions. There will seldom, if ever, be a time that you'll be able to run in, guns blazing, and just forcibly complete the mission. You have to be willing to play it smart. If you think it'll make a sound, play and assume that it does for safety, which ties back into gameplay a bit. You never want to find yourself assuming, oh yeah, I can definitely hack this, or oh yeah, I can definitely snipe that guy, because it consistently has a chance to go not as planned. Even flying the drones, once you get access to them, look, feel, and sound exactly like you would expect the drone to, except now your drone has a zappy gun. In terms of general replayability for this, if you're into kind of the sneaky, actiony, adventure style of games and enjoy not having to follow a rigid storyline, this is absolutely going to be a game you love. Even if you find yourself growing a little bored of mass recruiting and then opting to do the story, it never sets you up in a fashion that you can't move forward. There's tons of people to recruit, tons of city to explore, mountains of tech points if you're into completionist things, and a myriad of gadgets and gizmos that you can access and upgrade at your home base. You'll be at no shortage of side quests, tangoing with the cops and running away from them while making your best Three Stooges noises, or helping those in the city rise up against an oppressive regime. The only thing you have to worry about is, will your uprising perhaps cause issues with zero-day reappearing? There's only one way to find out. The last thing I wanted to take a moment to visit was something involving the controls and accessibility options. The game does allow for a full rebinding of both controller inputs and keyboard and mouse. I played on PC release, obviously given my specs early on in the video, which supports PS and Xbox controllers for gameplay and also allows for rebinding on those. Accessibility options are extensive, with a colorblind mode to address 3 types of color blindness, simplified puzzle mode to allow for no puzzles to be completed upon interaction, text-to-speech, closed captions for story, closed captions for in-game free roam engagements, and even narration-to-speech, where the game can read text for you as needed. Accessibility options also include aim-to-lock assistance, turning camera glare effects on and off, text-to-voice chat for the upcoming multiplayer builds. I don't know what the multiplayer is going to look like, but I'm very interested in it. You'll probably see me playing with people on Twitch with it. Speech to text, and changes for text-to-speech volume. This game managed to have good accessibility options and actually be interesting, unlike some other AAA games that I may have fancied earlier this year and streamed. Again, the biggest gripes I have with the game are some of the modeling issues are a little bizarre to look at, and I still can't get over just how absolutely, seriously, the driving is bad. It is so bad driving the car. All in all, though, it's a fun game, and I can safely say, if you're a fan of the genre, you'll love this installment. It takes the growth from Watch Dogs 2 and moves forward with it with gusto, and has nothing but good things to show for it. Watch Dogs Legion releases on PC, PS4, and Xbox One worldwide on October 29th. Did you know that even when I'm not live streaming, I still manage to fuck things up? I just did this entire segment and my mic was muted the entire time. Help me. But it's me. It's Pleasantly Twisted. I'm back and I'm being a little shitheel as I usually am, and I'm watching my clock because I'm late for my next appointment. Just wanted to remind everybody how we're handling this. I know that I've been very vocal about Ubisoft and a lot of the allegations put out against them because, what the fuck? And I just wanted to remind everybody, keep your boots on their necks, but make sure you're targeting the correct people. Please do not go and harass, people like me who are just trying to do their job, or people like the people who gave me the key. That recruiting and review team literally has nothing to do with the fact that their CEO is a blubbering fool who just sits there and is just like, well, I didn't know any of this was happening. I wasn't aware of any of this, because none of that's even a remotely acceptable answer. I don't want people to get the impression that because I reviewed this game, and plus, again, I got it for free, thank you so much again for the key, Ubisoft, that all of a sudden I am now giving them passes and being friendly and nice and loving to them. Not even an attempt at it. I appreciate the key and I appreciate the teams that I've been working with, but none of that changes the fact that they still need a lot of change. They still need a lot of upheaval. I still need to fix my hair before I go live because, it is what it is, but it couldn't be my stuff without something being wrong or, my mic being muted. But I just want to put out that disclaimer. Absolutely keep focused and stay on them, but just make sure that you're staying on them and you're not being an asshole, yeah? Yeah? Don't go after the people who just are out here doing their job. But absolutely go after their CEO, who legitimately was just like, I never knew this. Okay, bro. Okay.